Hold on, now try.
Hello, Alan.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
It works.
Alan, assuming since the agenda calls for the appointment of a chair, vice chair, secretary, there isn't currently a chair in place to call this meeting to order. So I would imagine that Donna should be the one to officiate the meeting until a chair is elected.
Yes, that's fine. If they want to mix it up and change things around, I guess they can, or they can keep it the way it is.
We'll give it, what, 30 more seconds? Before 6:30?
I'll just leave it the way it is.
Hold on, don't start talking about it yet.
Is this gonna be an official thing?
Yes.
Everything was going good, and then we get lawyers in here.
God dang it, Ernie. Following the rules, dang it.
6:30 if you want to call it to order.
All right, I can call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. No prior minutes to approve. We go down to the number 3, consideration and action. A, consider to act upon the appointment of chair, vice chair, and secretary of the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee.
So you don't have to worry about that just yet. So as I explained very briefly before the meeting to each of you about what the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee is, City Council elected to take the path that many other small cities do. And that was simply appoint the Planning and Zoning Commission as also the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. So although it's 2 separate committees, you really serve a lot of the same functions. Planning and Zoning for the last year has served as our Capital Improvements Committee related to other capital improvements. Here in a little bit, we'll get into why this committee is specific, and Aaron's going to explain a little bit about why this committee has been formed and what the focus is going to be. But you have the option tonight to either, if you want to keep it the same as the Planning and Zoning Commission with Ms. Wellborn being the chair, you can certainly do that. If you would like to switch things up and and select a different chair, you have that option too. That's completely up to you. But we will need a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Alan, I did want to check with you on our other committees. The liaison, the city employee that serves as the liaison for the committee, typically serves as the secretary for that committee. Does the secretary need to be a committee member for this committee, or can it be a city staff person?
I think it needs to be someone on the committee. Now, the city staff person can essentially act as a secretary, but I think it's more of just making sure you're following the structure of the committee.
Okay.
With the appointment of a secretary, kind of like a city secretary is a heck of a lot more than just a secretary.
Right. Okay. So we'll open up discussion to you on how you want to move forward with selecting a chair, vice chair, and secretary.
I say make her the chair.
Like it.
I don't want nothing. I just.
I know I can't be a secretary. I can't keep up with everything.
You've already taken notes and stuff. You'll be the
I haven't
secretary.
wrote no notes.
Yeah, you have. Look here. Let's see. You wrote more than I have. I haven't wrote the thing down.
We
You'll be the
discuss it
secretary?
before we decide we're gonna do the capital
Would you
improvement
like to
thing.
be
Yes,
secretary?
yes. We'll need a motion. We'll need a motion from a member to appoint a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Then a second, and then
I make a motion for chair. Miriam can be vice chair.
Or vice versa.
Richard.
Oh, it says Miriam.
Yeah.
we have to be very specific with the motion. So if you want to move that Judy Wellborn is the chair, you can say that.
Okay, I move to make Judy Wellborn chair, Richard
Isararis.
vice chair, and
Laura Mayhill.
Laura secretary.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Brenda moved quick. The two people that weren't appointed supported that pretty quick. Okay.
Mhm.
That was a good unload right there.
Oh,
We're real
and you need-
difficult, aren't we?
Yes. You gotta vote.
Oh, we
Was
got
there a
a-
vote? Did I miss the vote?
Not just yet.
Okay,
Donna was writing down the names.
gotcha.
You want to call
I don't know how you vote.
them? Just all those in favor,
Oh.
say
Aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, Judy, so now it is your meeting, ma'am. We'll turn it over to you for the discussion item. If you just want to read the discussion item. Item A there,
What find it?
item 4A.
Where's the discussion item?
Would you like me to read
And,
it?
She
ma'am?
don't have a- she don't have- Yeah, but-
That's the other agenda for the,
Oh, okay.
This is the one we just used a minute ago.
That's,
says,
Would you like me to read it for you, ma'am? Is that better? or-
Well, let's see.
she's got a secretary.
Number- Discussion item, present and discuss presentation and discussion of matters related to impact fees, including but not limited to the impact fee process, the capital improvements plan, historical data, and the future land use plan. That was number A. Do I wrote number B too right now?
Nope, just A, just A is fine. So to give you a little bit of background, the city of Everman historically has never assessed impact fees. We've never imposed impact fees. I'm going to let Aaron or Alan explain a little bit better what impact fees are because I want to make sure the description is perfectly legal. But essentially, impact fees assist the city with developments and making sure that as the city grows, we are able to address the infrastructure growth simultaneously. That's the purpose of the impact fee. So we approached the city council and advised city council that we have not been assessing impact fees, and city management, myself and the staff felt that this may be an avenue that we want to pursue because we are seeing a lot of growth in and around Everman. And we felt that this was an opportunity that we didn't want to miss and needed to address a lot of infrastructure that has just, there's no other way to explain it other than it's just been forgotten about and dilapidated over the years. And the funding isn't always there for us to be able to address those issues. So as we're seeing this growth, we wanted to essentially take the opportunity to make sure that we could improve our infrastructure to sustain that growth. City Council approved the allocation of American Rescue Plan funds towards the research and study associated with implementing impact fees. That's when we contracted with Cobb Finley and our law firm, which is the Bojorquez Law Firm. Dottie Palumbo was the primary attorney that's been working on this with us, and Alan is our primary city attorney that's also in the loop with all of this. So this has been a pretty big team effort to get to this point. Aaron Frick is with Cobb Finley. He is the primary one who's developed this plan that you see in front of you that I've provided to you that references our land use assumptions and capital improvements plan. So Aaron, I'll just kind of turn it over to you if that's okay for you to describe what this is and what's in it.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Aaron Fricky. I'm with Cobb Finley, and I'm a civil engineer, and I got the pleasure of working on this impact fee study. The purpose for impact fees is when a developer comes in, they have an impact on the existing infrastructure, be it roadways, water, and sewer. And the local government code gives an authority through the impact fee process to where cities can make development pay for themselves. Basically, the development will give the city money to help pay for the infrastructure that's being impacted by the development. So if a water line can currently sustain the existing citizens and a new developer comes in and that water line has to be increased or a sewer line has to be increased, the developer will have to pay a significant portion of that increase to help offset the infrastructure costs. That way, the existing citizens don't have to pay for development to come into their city. So it's just a way to shed costs to the developers. And there's a very defined process through the local government code. It's 395. But they set forth the impact fee process, and in that there's two hearings we have to do. One will be at the beginning. It's land use assumptions and capital improvement plans. The land use assumptions are basically what can the land currently be used for? And from the P and Z side, you know what the zoning is of the city, how the city is designed to grow right now, commercially or residentially or industrial, and what you guys as the city wish for the city to grow into. So if you see changes in the city, your side kind of plans the city forward on a zoning direction, which right now, as Everman's almost built out, we have a couple of pockets of vacant land. And of course, there's some ETJ that's possible to bring into the city. This is why you want to get impact fees set and established before those places start developing, because every unit that comes in, whether it's a house or a Walmart or commercial, then you have to, you can assess an impact fee and get money up front to help offset the city's costs on infrastructure. So land use.
One question, can I highlight with
Yes,
that? Question, what about, just because I think this may be a question I have, what about revitalization of neighborhoods? So if we have an existing commercial development that gets bought out, torn down and then rebuilt, does that impact fee assist with this, or?
I don't know that answer.
Okay,
Never had that issue.
okay.
That's an issue.
I think I can partly answer that. It depends on the extent of the renovation and how the fee is to be assessed. Normally, the fee is assessed at the planning stage, either through when the plat is accepted, and it is just a fee that's passed along to the developer. So yes, if there's redevelopment, depending on how the council actually adopts the plan and the fee, the way it's to be assessed, then absolutely, it could be assessed with any new development that comes in, whether you consider that raw land development or scraping off anything existing and putting something new on there.
Thank you. So before we can even establish impact fees and get to that portion of it, first thing we need to do is define, we have to do a land use assumption and a capital improvement plans. That's where we have Stephen Cook. He's looked at the city's planning and zoning, your maps on the zoning, and he's done research on the history, the trends of Everman and how Everman's growing. And we use historical data to project the future, because the capital improvement plan looks out in the 10-year future. And if you look at historical data, and there hasn't been a lot of development, but we know there's pockets of development coming. And we hear some noise from some developers saying, hey, I bought this land, we're thinking about building. We can incorporate those plans in our projections and say, even though the historical data says that right now our population in the history hasn't grown a lot in the past 10 years, with this potential development, our population could increase. Well, the population increase is going to cause an impact to your water and your sewer and your roadways. And we're focusing on water and sewer with this one. We left roadways off.
Correct.
So with the land use assumptions, we project the population, we project any zoning, residential, commercial, and those have values on how many units we can count in our formula for an impact to the existing system. And once that's defined, which is what Stephen Cook has defined in the first half of this report, the second half is the capital improvements plan. And what I do there is there's two different things. There's looking at the existing city infrastructure. How does your existing water and sewer lines, how do those serve your existing population? Are they oversized? Are they undersized? And if they're oversized, they can support that new growth, and you can actually have them pay a percentage of an existing line that is going to supply them with existing water capacity that's already built into your system. So we can pass off some of that cost to the developer. This is where we look at your existing system, and we also look at the future. We try to look in the future and say, if this development grows over here, it's going to impact this water line and this sewer line. Those will have to be upgraded at a certain price tag, and we will pass on a certain percentage of that to the developers. So the land use assumptions go into the capital improvement plans. The capital improvement plans get merged together in a calculation that the local government code puts forth and for us to calculate how much we can pass on to developers. So let's see. Are there any questions at this point?
You said you're gonna leave roadways off?
We didn't put a focus on roadways for a couple of reasons. One, After a lot of research, I'm told that it's oftentimes not as a fruitful of an opportunity, so to speak. It may not be so cost beneficial because obviously doing this, we put forth a lot of funding to be able to just get to this point and having the ability to impose these fees and collect that. So sometimes for lack of a better word, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze sometimes on doing roadways.
Yeah.
Secondly, our focus as a city and my focus has been on the infrastructure. And I think it needs to remain on the infrastructure for probably the next 5 to 10 years because of how dilapidated things are and how much improvement needs to take place. I haven't wanted to focus a lot of city funding on roadways just to come back in 1 or 2 or 5 years and tear that roadway up to replace a water or sewer line underneath it. So we're trying to make that transition. As you've noticed, if you look at Christopher Drive, for example, Christopher Drive was slated to be redone 2 years ago. We put that project on hold, and we actually talked about that when we were doing our capital improvements planning last year about how I recommended that we put that project on hold until we got the water line done. Well, now that water line's done, and now we've got plans starting at the end of this month to go back in and then complete the roadway. So I just think that's a better way of looking at it. So we have opted to forego the roadway study at this point and the roadway impact. I believe it's also a very difficult study involved with roadway impacts, correct?
Yes, it's a more difficult study.
Yeah. So we've just focused on water and sewer for this one.
I was just curious, when you said that, it kind of,
So we have to go through these 2 hearings, and it's a process that's set forth so that we can ensure the public is notified that we're looking at the capital improvements plan, we're projecting forward, we've done our due diligence, we're not just making stuff up. We've actually look at the trends, the historical, look at the projections of what we see coming and putting it on to calculations and forecasting so that we can make it's close. It is guessing in one way, but we're trying to guess with as much information as we have so that we can pass off these costs accordingly. So that's where the advisory committee comes in, is the city council might not have the time to look at this thoroughly, and they have an advisory committee that will look at this and just offer suggestions. If something looks out of whack, if something doesn't look like we've taken into account the proper zoning map, something doesn't look right, you guys, the committee would speak forward and have written comments on before we move to the next step. And it's just to provide feedback. It's a check and balance during the process, but also at the back end, it's a check and balance to make sure that when we establish impact fees, it's a semi-annual report back to the council to say, hey, we implemented these impact fees on this date. Over the past 6 months, we have received this much money from development, and it's been spent in the proper ways, because you can't just take that money from water projects and spend it on sewer projects over here. Can't take money from these impact fees on water projects and spend it on roadways. They have to be spent on capital improvement identified projects. So that's part of the checks and balances to make sure that you're doing the right thing with the code that's been set forth.
So basically you're saying that if it's collected from the sewer and water, it has to go back into sewer and water
Yes, ma'am.
improvement?
yes,
Okay.
a lot of the city stuff is like that, trust me.
Mhm. Yeah, everything has to be tracked according to the local government code 395.
Yeah, and within the, one thing too to highlight is this capital improvements plan is very different from the capital improvement plan that we as a city have reviewed before. This is only focused on water and sewer. I know that we've had our meetings before. We've talked a lot about roadways,
Yeah.
capital equipment, fire trucks, apparatuses, park equipment, those sorts of things. That's not included with this. This is limited to just water and sewer. And you'll actually, there's not a page number, but maybe 7 or 8 pages from the back, there's a project priorities listing that Aaron has added in here. And a lot of this information that you'll find within this capital improvement plan is based off feedback that Aaron has gotten directly from city staff, specifically the Director of Public Works, on as well as our city engineer, on what projects we felt were going to be the most important. So you'll kind of get an idea, and some of this will probably look familiar because we've talked about this within our previous capital improvement planning before.
impact fee process asks that we update the capital improvements plan every 5 years. And so at that 5-year mark is where this advisory committee we could choose to actually not improve, but update the capital improvement plan. If the city hasn't seen any change on the growth at that point, you can choose to leave it the same, or you can amend it before those 5 years. Anytime one of those situations takes place is when the advisory committee has to review and offer written comments to the council to make a move on that, whether it's amendment or an update or a no update. Any questions?
Now, we're talking, like you said, just water and sewer. Are we thinking of, like this committee would be some other areas would do the same thing?
So our plan moving forward is to still continue with P and Z performing the all overall capital improvements planning with the city. We want that citizen input and feedback, and you guys serve as a great committee to get that feedback. So we'll certainly on an annual basis continue to do that with this committee. But just for the purposes of the capital improvement advisory committee, we're going to be focusing only on water and sewer for the purposes of this. But we will still perform the other function that we had before with gathering your input on the recommendations from city staff and so forth, and then any recommendations you have on any other capital improvements within the city that you might like to see. So parks and apparatuses, equipment, those sorts of things, certainly you'll still be reviewing those just separately from this. Alan, can you think of anything to add?
No, just as far as the process from here, if there aren't any other questions or anything, we need a motion to recommend that this be sent to the city council for their consideration. I think that's the subpart B, recommendation to city council for the proposed land use assumptions and capital improvements plans. That's basically just affirming what the engineer has already found as needs for the city and potential sources of not only collecting revenue, but also upcoming projects that will be performed. And of course, that would be ultimately up to the city council to determine which projects remain on the list if they want to see maybe something else put on the list. Also, as far as the way the fee would be collected, whether it's through the permitting process, through the platting process, a combination of all those things. But at this point, I think the chair needs to entertain a motion to either approve the land use assumptions and the capital improvement plan and forward that plan to the city council for their consideration.
Do we have any estimates yet in regards to the actual impact fees?
No, that's once the land use assumption and CIP hearing is held, and so these are published right now. We've published them and we've set a date for, is it April
19th.
April 19th for a hearing. 5 days prior to that, we need written comments from this advisory committee on any iniquities or anything that you see with this plan that we need to address. At that hearing, this is where the public gets to weigh in on it and hear about it. And after that hearing, it'll be taken to council where within 30 days, they have to make a resolution to approve this adopt this land use assumptions and capital improvement plan. Once those are adopted, then we can take this plan and this capital improvement and go into the calculations for the impact fees.
Okay,
It can be $1,000 or $3,000 per property, per unit
right.
on the water side or sewer side.
Yeah, I know it might depend on the size of the tap, how much capacity and all that. All right, thank you.
So
Motion to
Make
approve
a mo-
make a motion to approve
the city council.
the city council
The land use assumptions.
of the land assumption.
You can actually, if you want to make it so much easier, You can actually just say, I make a motion to approve and then read that actual item, starting from recommendation of the city council if you'd like.
Where's that?
4B.
Oh, okay. I make a recommendation that review and possibility the act upon and a recommendation to the city council.
I'm sorry,
for
I
the
don't mean to
pur-
interrupt you. So on the motion, it's got to be a motion to actually approve. So if you just want to say, I move to approve a recommendation and start there, if that would be appropriate.
This way you want me present.
Yeah, it's got to be approved.
We got you back.
Tell me what to say. I make a motion to approve.
A recommendation.
Hmm.
And then you can read from a recommendation. So you say, I make a motion to approve a recommendation and then keep reading from there.
I think you should have been. I'm sorry, people. I do make a motion.
You make a motion.
I make a
Second.
motion that we accept which one is this?
B.
A,
Or
the
B.
presentation and
Or B.
discussion of matters related to
Right,
impact
right,
fees.
right when you
including
see upon,
Mhm.
start there.
But not limited to.
We're on item 4B, not 4A, 4B.
Oh, review, okay.
See what help I
All
get?
right,
Yeah.
That's my
That's
fault.
why
I
he
pulled the
doesn't
wrong
want
one.
to do anything.
Right after upon. So you see that A after upon? Yeah, you can say, I make a motion to approve and then
I make a
A.
motion to approve the review and possibly act upon the recommendation to the city council for the proposed land use assumptions and capital improvements plan.
I second.
Alan, you good with that?
What?
I think
He's
he's
speaking
muted.
Oh,
to
yeah, I
the
think you're
attorney.
muted, Alan. I'm sorry.
He's talking to the attorney on.
Hmm?
He's talking-
I'm sorry, somebody came in, so I muted myself.
That's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a good motion and you have a second and it's ready for a vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? No, okay.
Nope.
And then item C, Ms. Wilborn?
Review and discussion of the impact fee schedule.
I think we pretty much talked about that.
Yeah.
Go to the April 19th, and then within 30 days, the council will approve that. If it's the land use assumptions and the capital improvement plan, they approve that, and we'll immediately set the next hearing. And then the same thing, they'll have 30 days to accept, or to adopt a resolution on the impact fees.
Can you say that again? Can
One
you say
thing,
that again?
oh, I'm sorry.
You said-
Just time.
So on April 19th, we'll have the first hearing.
Oh, okay.
And within 30 days, the council has to approve or adopt the land use assumptions and capital improvement plans. That's within 30 days. And then we will set the next hearing. And we have to set it 30 days out, publish the information so that citizens can see it.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
within 30 days of that, they'll accept the impact fees.
Okay, thank you.
So the hearing scheduled for April 19th as the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, you're more than welcome to attend that if you would like. It probably would be good to have at least one member there if you guys want to discuss if somebody come up. That way, if council members have any specific questions for the committee, they can ask you directly. Otherwise, they'll just rely upon us to translate what occurred here, or if you have any other questions, but that will go before the council on April 19th. We just ask that if more
I
than
can
3 of
come.
you plan to attend, to please let Mindy know so we can make sure that we post that in our legal.
Day of the week it is.
I'll make a motion that we send our vice chair to that.
Sure.
What's the name? That's it. Monday.
I'm gonna be in Kansas, so.
19th is a Tuesday, I believe.
What day of the week is it?
Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday.
I may come.
So Ms. Wellborn, we don't have any citizens here, so I don't believe we're going to have any citizen comments. So I believe we're down to the
Okay.
last item there if you want to.
This meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Slap it down.
There you